Rachel.
Hi, Brittany.
So we are back again, and I want to talk to you guys today about why I think healthcare should be, or why doctors should be more like restaurants. And if you hear that, you're thinking, what? I don't want my doctor to be like a restaurant. I want him to fix me, not give me a giant thing of fries. Actually, maybe I'm just hungry, but fries sound real good right now. But
Me too.
fries sound delicious. So when you go to a restaurant, and I was a server in college, so I know this all too well. But when you go to a restaurant, you know, your server will hand you a menu. And in college especially, I remember going in and like being like, all right, I only have $20 to my name. So whatever I buy needs to cost under this plus tip.
Right.
And you know, that's easy because when you sit down at the menu, you open it up, you see what you want, and next to that food item is the price that it will cost you, right? So before you even get to the end of the meal and you're waiting for your check, like you pretty much know. I mean, there's sales tax, and there's some other things you'll have to leave a tip that you have to account for. But for the most part, I know what I can order because the prices are there and still stay under the $20 I had to my name in college. The bill comes, I open it up, and there are no surprises unless something wrong happened, you know, and then I can look at the bill and say, hey, man, I only
Speak to the manager.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'm not a Karen, Rachel. So it's not just restaurants though, right? Every store we go to or, you know, goods or services we buy, we know what it's going to cost before we get the bill.
The price is right there.
The price is right there, except for maybe utility companies, but that could be a whole other episode because that's kind of a whole government protected monopoly that they can get away with that. But for the most part, we know what we're getting and for what amount of money, and there are generally speaking no surprises. I guess also car mechanics would be the other one that people think there's no, but that's because they're always finding something else wrong with your car, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's the old trope. But okay, so when you see a doctor, now usually your parents are probably the ones checking you in and out of the doctor, but let's pretend you are an adult. You're like college Brittany who only has $20 to her name and no gas on her car because that happened all the time. College is a fun experience. You see the doctor and you go up to the desk. Let's say you break your arm and you say, hello, I have broken my arm. Can you tell me how much it's going to cost to fix? They won't give you a price. First, they will say, well, do you have insurance? Are you paying cash? Are you a self-payer? They don't give you the cost. And even when you tell them, yes, I have insurance, they have to take your information and run your card and all this before they can give you the cost of how much it's going to cost to fix your broken arm. Why should that matter? If Rachel goes into a restaurant and says, how much is a cheeseburger? And they say, well, you paying with cash, check, or credit. I don't know if people pay with checks anymore. Actually, I've never even filled out a check, so I don't think people are.
Really?
I wouldn't even know what to do.
People don't like checks these days.
People don't like checks. But so can you imagine a restaurant being like, well, I'm going to need to see first, and then I'll tell you. Then I'll tell you how much. That doesn't happen because they wouldn't stay in business.
Or do you have food insurance?
Yeah, do you have food insurance? No, side note, and they got in trouble for this because this would only fly in the 90s. There was a restaurant in California, quick side note, they didn't have a set price for children's meals because they would make you step on a giant scale and they would charge you for the kids' meal. I had to stand on the scale, I remember well, because it was a gold rush theme. I remember people used to weigh their gold to say how much the gold was.
My goodness.
And so they would charge you 5 cents a pound. This got shut down very quickly. This is irrelevant to the conversation, but it reminded me of that funny. So if you remember Claim Jumper from the 90s in California, it was doing some weird stuff. But
I would never eat anything there if I had to weigh myself first.
No, I think I'm scarred. I think my 8-year-old self is still scarred from that. But for the most part, sorry for the silly anecdote.
It's terrible.
But for the most part, you're going to know, right? But doctors do not operate the same way. And that's for one simple reason. They don't have set costs. How crazy is that? How absolutely crazy is that they don't actually know how much it costs to fix a broken arm, because their whole thing is that if you have health insurance, and health insurance has made it really easy for them to do this, they want to get the most money they possibly can. And that's not wrong. Money itself is not wrong. The quest for money is not wrong. I love money. I don't have a lot of it, but I love it. And that's okay.
It's nice to have.
It's nice to have. Doctors are running a business. And when I say doctors, I should specify that's like the administrators, the ones running the doctor office, not necessarily your doctor. So they're making all these rules and they're saying, or not making rules, they're calling the insurance company and they're like, basically, we're going to haggle. We're going to go back and forth. If you've ever seen people at a flea market or a farmer's market where you're like, I'll give you $5 for that old rug. How about $7? How about $5? You go back and forth. That's what the insurance companies do. And they go back, or the doctors do with the insurance companies, and they go back and forth and back and forth. And the insurance company, the way insurances work is everybody who has the health insurance pays a little bit every month that goes into this giant fund of money. And then they use that money to pay out for the different coverage. Now, the reason this works is because most people will not have terrible health problems, right? So
are we talking about like insurance in general? In
general, yeah, that's how it works.
The way insurance is supposed to work.
The way insurance works. So that when one person who's insured, who has paid into that big pot, when something bad happens to them, then they get money to cover them so that they are not devastated. Yep.
You know, for example, if you have car insurance and you get into a car accident, then your insurance pays out from that big pot of money.
But it comes from the big pot.
Yeah.
Now, not like socialism. Because I know we talk about that a lot. This is a private thing, right? You pay into it, it's your choice, and they take it out. So the insurance company only has a fixed set of money. And a lot of people like to pretend that insurance companies are these big, bad, evil, corporations that tell you they're not going to pay for your care. But I want to get into that. They are working within that fixed set of money. They only have what the people pay in. They have to negotiate with the doctors. It's actually the doctors who can tell them, no, we're not going to pay for, or no, we're not going to accept that amount of money. And they have to work within that, right? So a lot of times it's the doctor's offices that are overcharging. But who do you talk to when you aren't going to get something covered and you have to pay more? It's usually not the doctor. It's the insurance who tells you, like, no, we're not going to pay for that. And so it's really easy to get mad at the insurances, but they're just like the middleman, right? It's your doctor, it's the insurance, and it's you, and they're just kind of pulled in between. So they get made to be the bad guy a lot, and it's like the "don't kill the messenger" is what the old saying goes. But it's usually these hospitals and these doctors' offices that are doing everything they can to get as much money as they can, and that's not right. And so there's a lot of new kind of market disruptors, you could call them, concierge care or direct pay care. And some of them have a model that's actually more like Netflix, where you pay a little bit a month and all the prices are either included, or another, I think direct pay is where you actually go and everything's listed. So you can go like a restaurant and you can go and say, my arm's broken. Oh, let me see how much. Okay, I see that's going to be that. And, maybe I add a little extra for an x-ray and all that. And you know how much you're paying because medical bills can devastate a person. And think about it. I can look at a restaurant menu and say, I'm not going to pay $12 for a cheeseburger. I'm leaving. But if my arm is broken, I kind of don't have any choice. I kind of like my arm, I like using it. I play the piano. I like to do a lot of things. I'm a comedian. I hold a microphone. I can't do that without an arm. That would be inconvenient for me.
Yeah, they kind of got you there.
They kind of got me there. But what a bigger problem is, and again, when I say doctor, I don't want you to think that I'm saying like your doctor doesn't care about you and they don't want to help you. One, doctors are human. So they're, we learned through COVID, there are great doctors, there are bad doctors. But it's also just the people who run their businesses at hospitals. They're called like hospital administrators, and they're like the businessmen of it. But they're a problem too, because there used to be a time when your patient just worked with your doctor. I mentioned in an earlier show, I like to watch these old like I Love Lucy black and white shows, and they never go to a doctor's office. The doctor always comes to their house.
To them.
And
Call
it's
the
a doctor
doctor
who's known them forever, and they have their nice little leather bag with their stethoscope, and they come on over to your house, and they know you, and they've known you maybe your whole life, and they remember story like, oh, okay, how's your son doing? How's this doing? They know what's going on in your life, and you have a relationship with your doctor. Nowadays, you go to this office, you maybe get 10 minutes with a doctor. but you spend an hour in the waiting room and then they move you into the doctor's room and then you think the waiting's over, but then you wait another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You
It's
get
like,
10
what's the
minutes.
appointment for?
What's the appointment for? And it's very impersonal. It's very almost like a factory line. But there used to be a time when we had a relationship with our doctors, and Rachel grew up. Her dad was a doctor.
Yeah,
And
my dad was
so-
a general surgeon. Actually, did a lot of mission work on the mission field, and like he is one of these old school guys. He went into it like really to help people.
Did he have a leather bag?
Yeah, and he passed away last year, and I still have his doctor bag.
Oh, I love that. You should show
my
it to
house.
us sometime. I'd love to see that.
Oh my gosh. Going through all of his old medical stuff, it was just like it should all be in a museum. I mean, it was amazing because he did some time out west with the Native American population out there too. I mean, he did so much interesting things. And then his final years as a doctor, he was up in the mountains of North Carolina, and he worked with some underserved populations there, and there were instances where like he was just dealing with patients face to face. Just he was in private practice, and sometimes people had a hard time paying, and he would accept one case. He made artisan candles, like these candles that were like intricately carved.
Your dad did, or a patient?
A patient did, and he paid my dad's bill for I think he took out his appendix or something, partially with those candles that he made. So they did a barter thing, and that was possible back in those days when my dad was practicing. But it is so different now. It is so not that, and it makes me sad, and I know it made my dad sad too, that medicine has become like that. And so impersonal and divorced from kind of, what it used to be, which was, first do no harm and like help your patients. And it used to be like a very caring profession. Not that it's not caring now, but it's become so hyper managed and controlled by higher ups, like the bureaucracy on top of medical care. I mean, getting back to what you wanted to talk about, like how a restaurant is run. It used to be a lot more like that, where prices were transparent. That's what it was. And if you couldn't pay, a lot of times there were charities that would step in, or you could work with the doctor and negotiate something.
And that's what I think we need more of that. We've just become so it's become so distant. It's kind of a cold, not just doctor. I think all of us are disconnected. You used to know your butcher too, and I'm not saying that necessarily. I love grocery stores and getting things in one place, but there was that sense of community that when we had that, even with the butcher example, if you couldn't pay for your meat that week, okay, charge it, and we'll come get it next week. But everybody knew where you lived. You had those smaller relationships, and so with a doctor especially, I would love to see that come back. But I really wanted to talk about this because health insurance companies and these big health insurance companies specifically get a lot of guff, as they say, for just being like bad and evil. And I'm not saying that they don't do less than ideal things, because remember, the government is still very heavily involved in all that, and so it's a mess. It's just a big mess of red tape.
It's not a free market.
It's not a free market. Absolutely not. Healthcare is not a free market. But insurance companies end up getting all the blame because they have to be the one to tell the bad news to people that they can't pay for all of it. And the doctors get kind of seen as like, well, he fixed my arm and set me on my way, but then you didn't know the cost. So there's a lot of things that I think we need to consider. And the fact that it, like most things in the world, it's not one thing that is to blame.
It's complicated.
I mean, it's always the government, but
yes.
But you know what I mean? What I mean is, but there's more to the story than just, well, clearly it's this thing that's bad. And I think when we do that, it's dangerous, because then it becomes like we're not solving the problem. If we all decide that it's only health insurance companies that are the problem to healthcare, then we're letting all the other problems slide. We're letting the fact that like the FDA and the DEA keep prescription drugs and important things we need for health and medicine regulated and too expensive. So there's all sorts of things, Rachel.
Regulatory capture.
Regulatory capture.
And the revolving door of big industry executives going
Big
to work
pharma and
for
FDA.
going to work for the regulator, and that's not just healthcare. That's also in like the finance,
Military industrial complex.
Yeah. Regulatory capture is a big problem because, at the very least, the government says it's going to regulate these things and be the watchdog and make it safe, but they can't even do that when regulatory capture comes into the picture. And we need to do an episode on that.
Yes, we do.
And kind of define what that is. And well, just in a nutshell, what regulatory capture is, it's when the industry that is supposed to be regulated puts themselves in the position of power within the regulatory agency. So they're calling the shots.
Captured it.
Yes, they've captured their own agency that's supposed to be keeping an eye on them and making them safe. And with that, we are a little bit over time.
It's fine. You know what? I think this was a great episode. I really enjoyed talking with you about this. Healthcare is probably something we'll talk about several times on the show that'll come up in other little things. So thank you again for listening and for having this fun conversation with us. Hopefully you find it as fun as we do because we love it. So thank you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, Rachel, we will talk to you later.
All right. Until next time.